Ambulance staff who are members of the union Unite will be balloted next week. We'll hear from them in a moment.
Also tonight, treat us like the Scottish Highlands. Should drivers in rural Yorkshire get the same discount on fuel as those in Scotland?
And we meet the Rotherham woman who lost 6 stone after being hypnotised into thinking she had a gastric band.
Well, it's been a long time in coming, but what a glorious day. This was a shot taken from Hepton Stall. Join me to find out if the sunshine will last.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us. We start tonight with some breaking news. Yorkshire ambulance staff are to be balloted for strike action. In the past hour, the union Unite says that ballot will begin next week.
Now, the dispute is over plans to save £46 million over the next 5 years. Well, Ian White's at the Yorkshire Ambulance headquarters in Wakefield. Ian, you've been speaking to both sides. What is this all about?
Good evening, Harry. Well, it is about those savings. £46 million has to be saved over the next few years. And as part of those plans, Yorkshire Ambulance Service wanted to introduce a new role, emergency care assistant. Now, that hasn't gone down well at all with the unions, particularly the Unite union. Now, an emergency care assistant is a less qualified emergency responder. They don't have as much training as a paramedic. And of course, the union said, well, this was dumbing down the healthcare service here, very worried about it. And they asked the management to look at it again. Now, management have already introduced this role controversially. It's a role that is, in fact, being used in other parts of the country. Now, things then hotted up a little bit more when, at the beginning of February, Yorkshire Ambulance Service said it was no longer going to formally recognise the Unite union. And today, well, Unite said it wanted to get some arbitration, go to ACAS, the arbitration service, the conciliation service, ACAS, to try and negotiate with Yorkshire Ambulance Service. But in a letter from the Chief Executive, David Whiting, which arrived on the desk of Unite this week, they've said, we're not going to go to ACAS. There's no more negotiations. As far as we're concerned, that's it. If you want to strike, you strike. Well, a short time ago, I spoke to Unite's regional organiser, Terry Cunliffe, and this is what he had to say to me.
We've sat down in negotiations with the Trust for a long time, looking at these implications of their cuts. It's that puts patient lives at safety. We've raised it with them consistently. We've raised it with them professionally. They've chosen to ignore it in the drive, I believe, to achieve foundation trust status by cutting significant costs out of their budgets.
Well, let's be clear about this, Harry. First of all, there will be a ballot. That'll be on the 6th of March, so that's next week. And if there is a vote for industrial action, then Unite members will not be working on the 25th of March. Now, to put this in a bit of context for you, most ambulance workers here at the Yorkshire Ambulance Service actually belong to another union, that's Unison. Now, whether or not those members decide to cross any picket lines that may be here, that remains to be seen. So the impact, well, the Yorkshire Ambulance Service are saying, isn't going to be that great. Patients needn't worry, there will still be an emergency service running. But of course, that's banking to some extent on Unison members not crossing the Unite picket lines. So we'll have to see how that goes. If you know, it could be a lot bigger than we think if that was the case. So we might very well see a return to the scenes we saw back in 1989, 1990, when there was a massive national dispute. That was about pay, a very different situation. But it did actually see the police, for example, having to run ambulances in certain parts of the country. We hope it isn't going to be like that here. There might still be time to sort something out, but as far as Yorkshire Ambulance Service are concerned, there's no more negotiation to be had.
Ian White, thank you very much indeed.
Now, next tonight, what does it cost to fill up your car? Pretty penny, I bet. Prices at the pumps are rising. And you know, motorists are being warned to expect a new record by Easter. Petrol prices have gone up 6 pence a litre over the past month alone in Yorkshire. Back in January, the average price for a litre of unleaded was 131p. But that's now gone up to 137. Now, the latest increase comes after several years of rising petrol costs, especially over the last 5 years. Now, let's go back 5 years to February 2008. You can see that petrol in Yorkshire was 108p a litre, Harry.
Now, people living in rural areas are among those hardest hit, of course, and there are now calls for a rural fuel discount. This already happens in the Scottish Highlands. In a moment, we'll investigate if it could happen here too. First, Charlotte Leeming's been out to see what impact it's having in North Yorkshire.
Chances are, if you live in the countryside, you're getting fed up when you fill up. Fuel costs at least 2 pence more a litre in rural areas compared to towns and cities.
Tony Kemp is feeling the pinch more than most. He runs a taxi firm in Pickering, which clocks up 80,000 miles a year. And whilst he's seen a drop in customers over recent months, there's been a huge rise in his annual diesel bill.
5 years ago, our fuel bill was about £7,500 a year. It's now nearly 15,000, as it's doubled in price. People think that you just get in the car and drive, it doesn't cost anything. It costs a fortune to run the taxis.
Transport is now the biggest weekly expense for households, costing more than the mortgage and food. And if you live off the beaten track where a car can be essential, you don't always have the option of shopping around for the cheapest price. So what do motorists in Pickering think about the cost of fuel?
I bought a diesel purely for the fact they do more miles to the gallon than a petrol. Everybody complains about it, but nothing's ever done about it. And it's the old thing of the price of the barrel is down or doesn't move, but we still seem to be gradually 2 and 3p, and it's 2 and 3p a litre, it's not a gallon.
It used to be something I ever thought about, but yeah, definitely. I don't like filling my car up with fuel anymore.
A few miles away in Malton is haulage firm Dennis Distribution. They deliver meat up and down the UK and currently spend £150,000 on fuel a month. In such tough economic times, they say they have little choice but to charge the customer more.
We try to pass the fuel cost on wherever possible, but it's getting harder and harder because we never get the full fuel cost back. So there is going to be, end of every month, we have a problem with making the books balance. Wherever possible, the customers will be made to pay. But it's very hard because they're struggling as well.
With fuel prices expected to reach a record high by Easter, people who live in rural areas may choose to travel to buy where it's cheap rather than where it's convenient. Charlotte Leeming, BBC Look North in North Yorkshire.
Well, the MP for Thirsk and Malton has written a letter to the Chancellor calling for North Yorkshire to be treated as a special case and given a lower fuel duty. Our reporter Spencer Stokes has been looking at how this would work. He joins us now. So what exactly has Anne McIntosh said, Spencer?
Well, she would like to see a 5 pence a litre cut for drivers in North Yorkshire, particularly people in very rural parts of North Yorkshire where they have to use their cars a lot. It's something that's already happened in parts of the UK, particularly on most Scottish islands and down on the Scilly Isles in the southwest. And the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Danny Alexander, has previously suggested that it could be extended to parts of mainland Britain as well. So what she's doing is prodding him, really, reminding him he's said this and seeing if perhaps there could be an announcement at next month's budget.
Will it happen?
Well, it's a complicated process. If the government decides it wants to press ahead, it has to persuade the European Union. It would then have to persuade every other European Union member, 26 countries, and they'd have to be persuaded that North Yorkshire people were really suffering because of high fuel prices in North Yorkshire, and that they were reliant totally on their cars, their lorries and their vans, and they had to do a lot of driving around. You then, Harry, get into a debate about whether or not, or how rural North Yorkshire is compared with other parts of the UK. That's something Edmund King from the AA has been telling us about today.
How do you define a remote rural area? It's perhaps easier in the Scilly Islands or some of the islands off Scotland, but in Yorkshire it's more difficult. You know, is it a distance from a main city, perhaps Leeds or York? How do you define it? And then, of course, we'll find regions such as Cornwall, East Anglia, Wales, there are other rural areas. So perhaps in the long run, the easier thing is for the government to cut fuel duty for everyone in the country, because to get full agreement from the EC, I think will be pretty difficult.
Well, as far as I know, Spencer, there's no petrol company, oil company that's actually making a loss. The profits seem pretty high. So why are we paying so much?
There's various different reasons every time. Over the last few weeks, it's to do with the strength of the dollar. Fuel is traded in dollars. So when it comes to buying fuel from Britain, it becomes much more expensive because we're buying it in pounds and the pound is weak. What the Chancellor is also having to decide on for the budget next month is whether or not to add more tax. He could put 3 pence more tax on. It's looking increasingly likely that he'll now delay that rise because of the price rises over the last few weeks.
Spencer, thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thanks for your reaction. It's a story a lot of you have been affected by. We've had many comments on our Facebook page. Iftika Ahmed said, my taxi business has suffered immensely because of high fuel prices. Looking for another job is on the cards.
Yes, Nicola Clark said, my children go to schools really far away. I'm struggling to find money for petrol.
Helen Simkis, we've had no car for over 2 years now. What with rising insurance and petrol, we're now finding it hard to even eat and pay normal bills. Glad we got rid of it.
And Nikki Southers said, I had to give up my job when the working tax credit rules changed. I've now given up my car as I can't afford to fuel it. Just wondering what I'm going to have to give up next. I don't drink, I don't smoke or go out as it is.
Neil Terry, I believe the future is hydropower used in cars, but in the near future, car sharing is the way forward.
And if you have a story that you want to share, you can post a comment on our Facebook page. That's BBC Look North Yorkshire.
Or you can send us an email to look.north@bbc.co.uk.
And you can tweet us at BBC Look North, and we've both got Twitter accounts as well.
Bradford MP David Ward has agreed to work with the Liberal Democrat Friends of Israel.
Yes, it follows controversial remarks that he made about the Holocaust. Mr Ward met his party's leader Nick Clegg and its chief whip last night to discuss a statement that he made before Holocaust Memorial Day. Now, in it, he appeared to blame Jewish people for atrocities in Palestine. Mr Ward has agreed to work with Friends of Israel to identify what the party calls more proportionate language. A disciplinary process has been adjourned.
Plans to charge for off-peak parking in the centre of Leeds have been approved by councillors. It's currently free to park in council car parks in the evening and all day on Sundays, but councillors say charging to park at these times will generate more income. The council says it won't make a final decision until it's considered all responses from the public.
A new report says businesses in Yorkshire are increasingly optimistic about the future. Now, 40% of manufacturing companies here say orders have actually increased over the past 6 months, and more than 60% expect sales to continue to grow.
It comes on the day 200 new jobs were announced in Pickering after Jaguar Land Rover signed a deal with a local company. Here's our business correspondent, Danny Hewson.
It's a sign of the times that success has made the owners of this company feel slightly guilty. Protec Covers in Bradford, which makes seat covers for caravans, has seen orders steadily increase. Last year they took on 4 new staff and need at least 2 more right now to keep up with demand.
We think it's down to obviously people holidaying at home, buying a caravan, buying a motorhome, and that area was growing. We also then felt that one of the things was that people that had a caravan or motorhome for quite a while then thought, let's look after it. We're not going to change it this year, we're going to look after it, so let's buy the best cover we can.
Keith's story is reflected in a new survey carried out by the Manufacturing Advisory Service.
What they're reporting is 40% expect to create jobs, 62% expect to see growth, and that's really reflected in the investment both in equipment and plant that they're making.
Another glimmer of good news came in North Yorkshire, where Pickering car manufacturer Rosty McKechnie announced it signed a contract to make parts for Jaguar Land Rover, creating up to 200 new jobs. And Leeds' position as a medical manufacturing hub was further boosted by the announcement of a £5.7 million government initiative for 3 of our universities to transform the way joints and other medical implants are made.
Manufacturing of medical devices is high-value manufacturing, high additional value in the products and highly skilled jobs, whether they be graduates or highly skilled technical staff, supporting manufacturing and engineering and materials companies in the region and in the UK.
So jobs for today and jobs for tomorrow. Small beginnings, but a start. Danny Hewson, BBC Look North, Leeds.
Before 7 o'clock.
It's all in the preparation, you know. How our Yorkshire soldiers get themselves ready for life in Afghanistan while still at home.
And the woman who's been able to think herself thin with a little help from her mum. OK, let's have a look at the sport now. Dramatic switch in what's going on in Division 1. What a great, great division that's turning out to be.
It is. I feel a bit sorry for the Blades, but fantastic job done by Doncaster Rovers, all after last night's matches. The thing is, the Blades have been knocked off top spot last night by Rovers. We'll see Rovers action in a minute. United, they have got a problem because they're getting used to teams trying to stifle them in league matches at Bramall Lane, and it happened again in a 0-0 draw full of near misses like that one last night. United, though, should also congratulate themselves for keeping hold of young keeper George Long. He was involved. He ensured a clean sheet with a string of saves, and you just wonder how much value they might cash in on him one day, or will they keep him for themselves? Really good young keeper. The chances kept peppering in. Bit of frustration amongst the Blades fans at the final whistle, some boos when the 0-0 stalemate was confirmed. But at that moment, the Blades could quite possibly still have thought that they were going to be top of the table because of what was happening elsewhere. Doncaster Rovers have been pegged back in the 90th minute of their match at Shrewsbury, which we can see the action from right now. Rovers had taken the lead in what had been a dramatic match already. This is the goal from James Husband. They led 1-0. And then Shrewsbury managed to squeeze in an equaliser in the 90th minute. Tom Eaves' shot fumbled by poor Gary Woods. Goalkeepers, look away now. Poor lad. But Rovers stuck to their principles. They kept passing, they kept going, and then came this magnificent winner in injury time from Carl Bennett. A 2-1 victory for Rovers. It took them to the top of the League One table at the poor Blades' expense. What a sight that is for us all. For South Yorkshire, it's a real collector's item. And as things stand, I mean, you would take that with Rovers in top, the Blades in second place. I'm just a bit worried about, you know, the situation with the Blades having been scarred by last season. They took second in the League One playoff final against Huddersfield Town.
We'll have that for May,
if it were to stay like that, but it's impossible. It's impossible. It's going to be a really interesting final few weeks of the season, and we'll look forward to it on Look North. If either or both of Rovers or Sheffield United can get into the Championship, there will certainly be a few Yorkshire neighbours waiting for them. That could still include Huddersfield Town in the Championship, who last night took a leaf out of Barnsley's book and at last showed some signs of pulling away from that relegation zone.
With the weakest goal difference in the Championship to their names, Huddersfield Town haven't felt much optimism recently. But that may have changed last night at Burnley, where new manager Mark Robins tasted victory for the first time, thanks to a gritty, if unspectacular show from both sides and a 1-0 win. The goal itself will be disputed for a while to come yet by the probable real scorer Callum Woods. His shot was parried to hover over the goal line before James Vaughan, like any good and greedy striker, poked it in for good measure anyway. With 41 points now in the bag, 12 more from their final 12 games should be enough to reserve Huddersfield a place in next season's Championship. In League Two, Chesterfield's lack of finishing power cost them yet more ground in the contest for a late run into the playoffs. The Spyrites are now 14th in the table after a 0-0 at home to Aldershot. And in the Yorkshire derby at New York Stadium between York City and Rotherham United, there was no Yorkshire winner, in fact. City's Matty Blair put them on course for an away win, but another late goal from Rotherham's Danny Nardiello settled it at 1-1. The Millers, though, are still well positioned at 5th in the table, with games in hand over several rivals.
So, a last-minute equaliser for Rotherham at the New York Stadium last night, and there'll be more excitement at the same venue on the 7th of April, because that's when the England's women's team will take on Canada. Tickets went on sale today for what will be the first ever international match at Rotherham's new home. The game's part of England's preparations for the European Championships, but it'll also be a big day for the League Two club themselves.
This isn't a whole new ball game for us hosting an international game, but I genuinely believe it will capture the imagination of the Rotherham public and possibly the whole of South Yorkshire. So we're expecting a great crowd to turn up and see what will hopefully be the first of many such fixtures to be held here at New York Stadium.
That's your sport. Good luck to Bradford City tonight, by the way. They're back in League Two action at home to Dagenham.
So a husky Paul Ogden.
I know.
A tad croaky.
I quite like it.
It wasn't just because of Huddersfield Town's winner at Burnley last night.
I bet you were screaming last night. Thanks very much, Oggy.
Thanks, Paul.
Now, you may wonder how soldiers due to go to Afghanistan get used to the difficult conditions that they'll definitely encounter, and the answer may actually surprise you.
As well as military training, soldiers from the Royal Horse Artillery's Chestnut Troop find themselves in the heart of an Afghan village listening to Afghan voices, and that's before they even leave British soil. Nicola Rees has been watching manoeuvres on Salisbury Plain.
These soldiers are about to deploy to one of the most dangerous places in the world, so their final training has to be as realistic as possible.
If you look in the distance, you can see two Chinooks. There's some kind of movement happening over there. I've just noticed a convoy.
Bombardier Matthew Foster's from Barnsley.
If anybody's coming towards us, hostile or friendly, I can direct them where to go, what to do, so nobody comes in, starts shooting at the fob itself.
The Chestnut Troop is a battery of around 100 men and women. It has a strong bond with the city of Sheffield, and its soldiers are often signed up locally.
The Chestnut Troop predominantly recruits from Yorkshire. They tend to be a robust breed and are well suited to the rigours of working alongside the infantry.
It's a really good brotherhood. The laughs that you can have with the lads are brilliant.
Today's training exercise on Salisbury Plain covers more than 100 square miles, and the military bring in role-play participants to help simulate conditions in Afghanistan.
As well as the forward operating bases, there are several simulated Afghan villages that the army are using as part of today's training exercise, and they're speaking local languages as well, local to Afghanistan. Here, for example, they're speaking Pashto.
Our role is just to show them the proper life in Helmand, the province where the British Army is based. Once they are arriving in Afghanistan, they know how is the culture.
With the help of Yorkshire soldiers, the British military has made significant progress in Afghanistan, but the risks on the ground are still as real as ever.
One day an IED goes off, you just got to prepare yourself, train for it, and once it happens, your training will kick in.
Yorkshire has suffered heavy losses in Afghanistan. 8 men were killed in the last 12 months alone. So this latest deployment of soldiers from Sheffield, Doncaster and Barnsley will be all the more difficult for the families left behind. Nicola Rees, BBC Look North on Salisbury Plain.
Of course, we wish them well. Now, it seems thinking yourself thin really can work. A woman from Rotherham has lost 6 stone after being hypnotised into thinking she'd had a gastric band fitted.
She's actually got her mum to thank, because it was her mum, Bev, who actually hypnotised daughter Danielle. They're both in the studio right now. But before we go any further, let's have a look at before and after. I love this. Here's before and this is after. What a difference.
I know, it's quite... I like the face I'm pulling on that one as well.
I want to know what you've seen, because you look...
I know, on both of them, it's like the same shot.
But 6 stone lighter?
Yes, yes.
Do you feel amazingly different?
Oh yeah, completely. I think when I was bigger, I had no energy. I was always lethargic. I slept all the time, and now I've got such an active job. I have to be thin, really. So I think I just feel so much confident. My self-esteem so much better. So.
You're obviously brilliant at doing it because you changed the colour of hair at the same time as well, then, do you? Did you have any qualms about doing this at all to your daughter?
Not really. I've done it with loads of other people, and I just wanted to help her. It's worked well with us, others. I wasn't sure, to be honest.
What did you tell her? What did you actually say to her when you were hypnotising her?
Well, you basically go through the installation of a gastric band.
As though you were an imaginary operation?
Yes, yeah.
See, I do know people who've tried it, and it hasn't worked for some.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, but for you, it was all a question of your daughter's health, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I was worried about her because the weight was going up and up, and she hadn't been that kind of weight before. She was always naturally very slim. And she was very depressed as well, so it was one of those things. I just wanted to help her lose her weight, and it worked very well.
I know you work in a special school, so you need to be active as well. This must have helped you enormously, has it?
Yeah, well, I think just because I'm having to move around a lot, and it's...
But when you'd had it done, did you feel like you got a gastric band?
What it was with my portion sizes reduced dramatically, because when I ate, I felt like I couldn't eat that much. So basically, I went from having huge portions to smaller ones, and it just gradually went on like that, and my portion size got smaller.
So you felt
Yeah,
full?
yeah. I felt like I was bloated, and I felt like I could be sick, really, if I'd eaten a large amount of food. So it just, that reduced, and then obviously my stomach shrunk as well, so it just like sort of carried on like that.
Do you need sort of topping up, Bev, or do you need to do another hypnosis? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that can happen with some people, but I think the fact is that because she still lives at home and everything, we've got into we've got into kind of a regime and a healthy eating plan. But I think with some people it does help to have a top up now and again.
Yeah.
Well, you look fantastic.
You do.
6 stone is such a lot of weight to lose. And I have to say, it's a year since and you've kept it off. Well done.
Well done. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us in the studio. Hey, what's some incredible news today in the newsroom, Krista? Are you going to relate or shall I?
To be honest, I've been dizzy all day because we were gifted a gift that we never expected. It's Paul Hudson's birthday. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
And dare we say, thank you for the chocolates, and they weren't misshapes.
Christy, you make me out to be tight.
Never.
2 boxes. I did walk past the pound shop, but I thought, no, I'm going to turn over a new leaf. So I hope you enjoyed them, and thank you.
They were amazing.
Thank you very much. Let me show you 3 pictures. The weather was amazing as well. 3 of the best today. That's Bridlington. That was taken at 9 o'clock this morning. The breaks were already into the coast. And the second one, as we head up to the Yorkshire Dales, Kilnsea, one of my favourite parts. And the snowdrops are out. Very nice indeed. With Malham, that's another favourite of mine. Even the breaks were there this morning. So keep the pictures coming in. Paul the Weatherman at bbc.co.uk, or you can tweet me. So the headline for tomorrow, dry with some sunshine. There will be some mist and fog around at first, and cloud will increase from the east later. But for the most part, it looks a nice day with high pressure in charge, and the high will be there at least until sort of early next week, middle of next week perhaps. So it's a prolonged spell of dry weather. Just a bit of drizzle perhaps Thursday night into Friday morning. You can see the back edge of the cloud. It moved very quickly south-westwards. So it's been clear and sunny for most today, and it's clear at the moment. Already, though, temperatures down to 1 at Filingdale, so it is going to be a cold night under clear skies. Some mist and fog later. A widespread frost. Temperatures in the range -1 to -3 Celsius. 1 or 2 spots could be lower than that. So the sun rises in the morning then at 6:58, setting at 5:41. Your high water time in Filey at 5:44 in the morning. So the Pennines gloriously sunny. There will be some mist and fog across low-lying parts of Yorkshire, but that will lift. We all see the sunshine. And then I think certainly into the afternoon we'll see cloud increasing onto the coast and pulling inland, reaching perhaps Leeds by the end of the afternoon. Let's have a look at the top temperatures. Coming in at around about 5 or 6 along the coast, but 8 or 9 inland. As I say, that dry picture continues. A fine weekend, that's it.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much. Are you sure you haven't hypnotised him to be more generous on his birthday?
I did actually.
Short hypnosis.
I'm sure it won't last. Thanks very much for your company. Happy birthday, Paul. Good
Thank
night.
you very much.
And David Essex, special guest of The One Show, next.
Can sugar be good for you? Do planes always spread germs? Is child safety always safe? Join Liz, Jem and myself, Maggie Philbin.
Look at that!
As we reveal the truth behind everyday matters with science.
It's all about thinking differently.
We have no evidence that no matter how much of these sweeteners you consume, you would ever get cancer.
That's categorical.
That's categorical.
Bang Goes the Theory starts Monday at 7:30 on BBC One.
Welcome to In Concert, the home of live music on Radio 2. And this is Emily Sandé.